Speed is my motto, nothing's ever holding back.
So for people who are listening to the podcast, I'm now showing you some footage of one of my races at the Nürburgring in the Radical SR8 this week. I've just gone up to a slightly better split, so starting further back in the field. As you can see in the footage, it's very close, tight-knit race at the beginning, and I'm gaining positions along the way. Not through overtaking, just with other people having an incident or coming together or making a mistake. Enjoyed this car this week. You've never tried the Radical SR8, especially at the Nürburgring. It's a great combo. The car sticks to the road like glue. Now, clearly, I think I gained maybe at this point 6 places. Again, without doing anything, and you see there's more parked cars on the right as we're leading down to one of the fastest sections on the course. There's some incident going off ahead, some cars shoot through and creates the chaos where I get involved.
Oh, great driving, mate.
So that's 6 minutes so and 8 minutes of repairs.
Thanks a lot.
Hello and welcome once again to the Lone Road iRacing podcast. I'm Guy Robertson, and this week we're doing something slightly different. There's no listener agony uncle question this week, and rather than manufacture one simply because that's where it normally sits in the show, I want to use that extra time to explore something that's become increasingly important in my own iRacing journey. Something I didn't think I consciously set out to create. But looking back over the last couple of years, I realise I've gradually been building it, refining it, testing it even, but definitely changing it and repeating it. A process. And here's the strange thing. The more I've stopped concentrating on the result, the better the results seem to have become. My Formula licence is now sitting above 4,300. More recently, I've started deliberately applying the same principles to my sports car licence, particularly this week in the Radical at the Nürburgring. And it's beginning to work again. So today I want to ask a question. Can we create an approach to iRacing that is consistent, repeatable and reproducible? And if we can, what happens to our results when we stop chasing them? Let's get into it. Let's go straight back to the Radical race. Started P26, finished P22. Minus 44 iRating and minus 0.05 safety rating. 8 minutes of repairs after a 6 minute tow. If that's literally all the information I give you, you'll quite reasonably conclude bad race. Because those are the metrics iRacing presents to us. Position, iRating, safety rating, championship points. They're very visible, they're immediate, and they're incredibly easy to become emotionally attached to. Now, let me add some context. I just moved into a higher split, started 26th, and within the opening few corners, as you saw, I gained 9 positions. I hadn't punted anybody out of the way, I hadn't launched ridiculous dive bombs, I hadn't driven beyond my ability. The decisions were working. The racecraft, not that there was much really, was working. I was moving forward. Then came contact. So now the question becomes even more interesting. Was the result bad? Absolutely, it's a no-brainer. But was the process bad? I'm not convinced it was. And that's an important distinction, because sometimes you can execute really well and still get a poor result. And sometimes you can drive terribly, get incredibly lucky and finish on the podium. Which one should you learn from? This is probably where my professional life has quietly invaded my hobby. My background is in quality, and when you spend years working with quality systems, you tend to become slightly obsessed with processes. Not simply did it work, but why did it work? Can we do it again? Will we get the same outcome tomorrow? What happens if we change the conditions? What caused the failure? Was it the process? Was it the equipment, the environment? Was it simply variation? And perhaps most importantly, what evidence do we actually have? And I've realised that's increasingly how I think about iRacing. I'm becoming less interested in did I win? I'm more interested in why did that race produce the result it did? What did I do well? What did I do badly? What can I repeat? And what needs to change? Because one brilliant result doesn't necessarily prove anything. We all get lucky at times. Cars ahead might crash. You might land in an unusually favourable split. You might simply drive the best race of your life. Fantastic. But can you do it again? And that's much, much more interesting. There are 3 words from my quality background that describe what I've gradually tried to achieve. Consistent, repeatable, and reproducible. First, consistency or consistent. Can I perform at approximately the same standard throughout a race? I'm not particularly interested in producing one heroic lap if the next 5 are all over the place. If my absolute best lap was, let's say, a 1.40, but I can only produce it once, I'd rather be capable of repeating doing a 1.40.5, because racing isn't one lap. Then repeatable. Can I take the same basic approach into another race? Tomorrow, next week, and another strength of field? Can I repeat the behaviour that produced the performance? And then reproducible. This is where it becomes really interesting. What happens if we change the environment? Different car, different circuit, different discipline, and even different license class. Does the underlying approach still produce improvement? Because if something only works under one very specific set of circumstances, maybe we haven't developed a robust process. Maybe we've simply found a combination that suits us. And that brings me to my formula license. If you're watching on YouTube, you're now looking at my Formula iRating progression, since iRacing split the old road license into Formula and Sports Car back in 2024. If you're listening to the audio podcast, I'll describe it. The graph begins at a little over 2000 iRating, and then it does what iRacing graphs do. Up, down, plateau, up again, big drop, recovery, another plateau, another climb. There is absolutely nothing resembling a beautiful straight line. And I actually think that's important, because that's reality. There were good weeks, bad weeks, confidence, frustration, times when I thought I'd cracked it. times when I gave back weeks of progress. But stop looking at individual races. Zoom out a little. Look at the direction. A little over 2,000 to more than 4,300 Formula IR. That didn't happen because I suddenly discovered a secret on iRacing. It happened over hundreds of races. And there's another important point here. Throughout the progression, I've never paid for a third-party setup, not once. I've used the setups available within iRacing. Now, before anybody gets the wrong idea, I'm not saying setups don't matter. They absolutely can, particularly when very competitive drivers are looking for tiny margins. What I'm saying is something very different. You don't necessarily need to spend more money before you can improve, because I didn't buy my way from 2k to 4.3k. So what changed? I did, or perhaps more importantly, my process did. That was probably one of the biggest changes. I stopped approaching every race as though everything other than a victory represented failure. Of course we want to win, it's racing, right? But winning is the ultimate outcome. It isn't always the realistic outcome of the race you're actually in. Maybe you qualify P2 with genuine winning pace. Fantastic, go for it. But perhaps you're P17 in a very strong split. You're not suddenly a failure because you didn't win from 17th. The question becomes, what's the best result available in this race? And I wasn't always very good at accepting that. I'd turn a perfectly good P6 into P19 because I desperately wanted P5. I defend positions I really didn't need to defend. I'd make a mistake or two, then immediately try to recover everything I'd lost. And that desperation produces more mistakes. Eventually I started thinking differently. If P6 is a good result, take P6. If P10 represents progress, take P10. If a race has gone badly and -8 iRating is the best remaining outcome, perhaps -8 is the result you bank. And gradually that became a phrase we've used many times now on this podcast. Bank the result. But I realised something. Bank the result isn't actually the entire philosophy. It's just one component inside a much bigger process. Now imagine two drivers. Driver A is quick, really quick, maybe 2 or 3 tenths faster than driver B. But every few races, driver A throws one away, gets impatient and forces a move, overdrives after a mistake, fights somebody when there is absolutely no need. Now driver B is slightly slower, but driver B finishes. Driver B recognises danger, understands when a battle matters, knows, more importantly, when it doesn't, sees smoke ahead and lifts, lets the ridiculously aggressive driver disappear up the road, because there's a reasonable chance they'll meet them again when he's pointing backwards somewhere. Over one race, driver A might look much better. Over 50, perhaps not, because small decisions compound. One sensible decision probably doesn't change your iRating. Hundreds of them do. They might completely change your graph. And that's what I see when I look at my formula progression. Not one breakthrough, hundreds, possibly thousands of tiny decisions. But there's a problem with my formula evidence. You could quite reasonably say, Guy, perhaps you're simply good at formula cars. And that's a fair point. Maybe formula just suits me. Maybe that's my natural discipline. So what happens if I take the same philosophy and apply it somewhere else? And that's exactly what I've started doing. This is my sports car progression chart, and it's not quite as pretty. It starts around the low 2000s, then comes a fairly substantial decline, down towards the 1700s. Recoveries, plateaus, but even more drops. Long periods where not much appears to be happening. And that was where I was focusing on my Formula license and testing this process. And I'm deliberately showing you all of it because I'm not interested in cherry picking the flattering bit. The ugly part matters too. But now look towards the very right hand side. Recently, something has started changing. The graph is beginning to move upwards once again, and particularly this week, racing the Radical at the Nürburgring. I've made significant gains. I'm now applying the same basic principles I refined in the Formula to sports car license. Different cars, different handling, different racing, same underlying process. And we're beginning to see improvement again. Does that scientifically prove I've created some magical system? Of course not. There are far too many variables. But it is early evidence. And when something begins producing similar outcomes under different conditions, that gets my attention. Let's make this practical. What am I actually doing? I break it into 7 parts. 1. Prepare. Learn the circuit, learn the car. Understand where the dangerous areas are. Where are people likely to make mistakes? Where can you realistically overtake? Where do you need patience? Don't judge preparation purely from your ultimate lap time. Preparation is more about understanding. Number 2, build consistency. I want repeatable laps, not one amazing lap followed by 9 adventures. Consistency creates mental capacity. If you're constantly fighting the car, you've got less attention available to read the race. Point 3, race reality. Race the situation you'll actually have, not the one you've imagined before the start. Perhaps you expected to fight for P5. Something happens, now P11 is more realistic. Fine, race for P11. Don't keep racing the fantasy. Point 4, manage risks. Not avoid risks, but actually manage it. Racing requires aggression. It requires overtaking and defending. But ask, is this move worth it? What happens if it goes wrong? Is this driver in front of me predictable? Am I generally alongside, or am I relying on just hope? Point 5, bank the result. Stop churning small potential gains into enormous potential losses. If today's result is good enough, take it. Point 6, review honestly. What actually happened? Not everyone else is an idiot, and not I'm useless either. Neither teaches you anything. What did you control? What didn't you control? Even when an incident isn't primarily your fault, could you have done anything differently? Point 7, change something. One thing, not 20. Change something, try again, review and repeat, which leads beautifully into something I spent much of my professional life around. Point 9, Plan, Do, Check, Act, or PDCA as we know it. Plan, Do, Check, Act. I don't think I deliberately decided to apply PDCA to iRacing, but looking back, this is basically what I've done. Plan, prepare, understand the race, set the objective, do, go racing, execute, the check, what happened and why, not just where did I finish. Then the act, what needs changing, then back to plan. And here's the important thing, the cycle doesn't finish. You don't reach 4.3k and announce, lovely, completed iRacing. Because as you improve, the competition also improves. The margins shrink and the process has to evolve. That's why 4.3 isn't the destination. It's simply where I am today. Okay, we're going to have a short break and hear a message from myself, and then we'll be back to continue our great discussion today. Before we continue, we're going to have a quick pause. If you're enjoying this week's episode, please make sure you're following or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're getting very close now to the end of Season 4, and Season 5 of the Lone Road iRacing podcast isn't very far away. There are some changes coming, some you'll notice immediately, others might take a little longer to reveal themselves, but I'm incredibly excited about where we're heading. Right, back to today's subject. Welcome back, viewers and listeners. Sim racing gives us an extraordinary number of things we can buy. Wheelbases, pedals, wheels, rigs, monitors, VR, telemetry, coaching, setup subscriptions and software. And plenty of those things are excellent. This isn't an anti-equipment argument, but perhaps before asking what should I buy next to make me faster, ask what is actually limiting my performance. Because if you make poor racing decisions, a 1500 wheelbase isn't fixing them. If you can only produce 3 consistent laps, a paid setup doesn't automatically create concentration. If you're crashing because you fight every car, different pedals won't teach you patience. And if you're underprepared, another piece of software might not be the answer. And again, my formula progression matters here. Just over 2k to more than 4.3k using the setups available within iRacing. I didn't buy my way there, I learnt my way there. I raced my way there, and I made an enormous number of mistakes along the way. Before reaching for the wallet, ask what you can improve for free. Consistency, decision making, racecraft, patience, risk management, preparation, review. That's an enormous amount of potential performance without spending anything. Here's the trap. Imagine starting P8. Lap 1, you launch an optimistic move. Somehow everybody avoids you. Lap 3, you defend ridiculously aggressively. Nearly cause an accident. Lap 6, you go 3 wide somewhere. 3 wide absolutely shouldn't work. Somehow you survive. 2 cars ahead of you crash later and you finish in P3. Your iRating goes up. Good race. The result was good, yes, but the process was awful. And if you reward that behaviour simply because you gain iRating, eventually you will pay for it. Now reverse it. Prepare properly, qualify well, make sensible decisions, drive within your ability. Someone tags you, you have to tow. 8 minutes repair, minus 44. Was everything you did suddenly wrong? No. And I think this is where so much iRacing frustration comes from. We confuse the quality of the outcome with the quality of the decisions, and they're connected, but they're not the same thing. And this is where last night's Nürburgring racing gave me something I generally couldn't have planned. After the first race, I went again. Same evening, same car, same circuit, same split. Most importantly, I followed my process. This time I started P23. And here's the important thing. I didn't enter that race thinking, right, I need to get my 44 iRating back, because that's chasing. I simply started again, and this time the process had an opportunity to play out. I finished P10, 13 positions gained, just 3 incident points, and I gained 38 iRating. So after 2 races, 1 disaster, 1 very strong race, my net position was minus 6 iRating. Just 6. If all I'd looked at was a number beside my name, I couldn't have concluded that 2 races had achieved practically nothing. But that will completely misunderstand what had happened. In both races, I was moving forward. In both races, the underlying approach or the process was working. One simply didn't get derailed, and then there was 1 more race. Race 3, 3rd race of the evening. Same split again, but this time I started P19. Best starting position of the 3. Lap 1 was Nürburgring lap 1 chaos. I collected 4x in the middle of it, but the car survived. And instead of panicking, instead of trying to recover everything immediately, I just settled down, read the race and managed the risk, kept moving forward, and eventually I crossed the line P6 from 19th. Another 13 positions gained, and I gained 59 iRating. And despite the 4x from the lap 1 chaos, I actually gained 0.10 safety rating. So now let's put the whole evening together. 3 races. Race 1, P26. Finished P22, lost 44 iRating and 0.05 safety. Race 2, P23 to P10, plus 38 with 3x. Race 3, P19, finished P6, plus 59 iRating, 4x, and I still gained 0.10 safety. Across those 3 races, my net iRating gain was plus 53. And here's the interesting bit. I'm not most pleased about the 53 points. I'm pleased because I never changed the process. Imagine what could have happened after race 1. Minus 44. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I decide I need those points back. Now every car becomes an obstacle. Every position becomes urgent. Every gap looks slightly larger. P23 on the grid suddenly feels unacceptable. Maybe I force a move. Maybe I crash. Maybe instead of being minus 6 after race 2, I'm minus 100. We've all done it. That's the iRating spiral. And it's precisely why I don't want the number determining how I drive the next race. The process determines how I drive the next race. The number is the output. There's another little piece of evidence, excuse me, for those races that interests me. Race 1, before the contact, I gained 10 positions. Race 2, P23 to P10, 13 positions. Race 3, 19 to P6, another 13. Now, I'm not claiming we've discovered some new mathematical law of iRacing, but it's clearly a pattern. And patterns get my attention. One event can be random, repeated behaviour becomes interesting. That's exactly what I've been doing in Formula for the last couple of years. Looking for patterns. Keeping what works. Changing what doesn't, and then refining, repeating, and gradually the graph moved. Now I'm applying this thinking to the sports car license, and already the graph is beginning to move too. The first race also gave me a slightly better definition of something we've talked about for a long time: bank the result. Perhaps what we really mean here is bank the best result that is still available, because the available result changes during a race. Maybe you started expecting a podium, then the podium disappears. Fine, but now what is available? P8, bank it. Maybe P8 disappears. What's available? P15. Maybe, perhaps you've got some damage. Maybe the objective becomes limiting the iRating loss. Maybe it actually becomes just finishing the race. Maybe it's safety rating. Or maybe it's just gathering information. The race constantly gives you new information, and your job is to adapt. Let's look at the formula graph again. There are some horrible drops. At the time, each one probably felt enormous, but over 2 years, they're simply part of the line. Now, think about the first radical race, minus 44. At that moment, it felt significant. 2 races later, I turned the evening into a plus 53 overall. Nothing about race 1 changed, only my perspective changed. And that's the lesson. One race can lie to you. Sometimes even 1 week can. Long-term improvement isn't built from just one race. It's built from hundreds, perhaps thousands of decisions. And now let's look at the sports car graph again. Formula is where the process has been matured. Sports car is where I'm now testing whether it fully transfers. Can I take the same fundamental principles and reproduce improvement? I don't know yet, and I'd actually like that answer, because we're still gathering evidence. Maybe the graph keeps climbing, maybe I hit another plateau, maybe I lose 300 iRating. If the process stops working, I need to be prepared to change it. You don't become emotionally attached to a process simply because you created it. The objective is to improve and move on. But right now, here they are. 2 licenses, different cars, different handling, different racing. Same driver and increasingly the same process. Formula just over 2,000 to more than 4,300. Sports car now beginning to climb again. And that's why I'm paying attention. Ask yourself something. If I could magically give you 3/10 tomorrow, would it generally solve your biggest problem? For some drivers, the answer would be yes. Maybe you're extremely consistent. Your racecraft is excellent. You rarely crash. Raw pace generally is the constraint. Fair enough, but for many drivers, 3/10 isn't actually the biggest problem. It's the race every 5 starts where you lose 90 iRating. It's the lap 1 crash. It's impatience. It's the desperate recovery drive after making a mistake. It's fighting for P14 as though the winner gets a Formula 1 contract. Perhaps your biggest opportunity isn't finding more pace, perhaps it's eliminating expensive mistakes. That's a completely different way of looking at improvement. And please don't listen to today's episode and think, right, I need to copy Guy's exact process. No, build yours. Your weaknesses aren't necessarily the same as mine. Maybe yours is concentration, qualifying, starts, tyre management, confidence, aggression. Maybe you're too cautious. Maybe you're not cautious enough. You need to identify your patterns, then deliberately work on them. And here's something incredibly simple I'd like you to try. After your next race, don't immediately register for another one. Take 2 minutes. Ask yourself, did I prepare properly? Was I consistent? Did I make sensible decisions? Did I manage risks? What worked? What didn't? And what's the one thing I'd change next time? That's it. And perhaps write it down. Nothing complicated. Just record it and it can hold you to account. Because memory has an annoying habit of rewriting races. After a bad one, we remember the idiot who hit us. After a great one, we remember how brilliant we were. Neither necessarily tells the full story. But if you start recording what actually happened, patterns start to emerge. And patterns give you something you can improve. Last night, as we've heard, I raced 3 times. The first was effectively destroyed by contact, -44. The second, 23 to 10th, +38. The third, 19th to 6th, +59. Across the evening, +53 iRating overall. But that isn't the part I'm most pleased with. I'm pleased because after the first race, I didn't chase the loss. I didn't change my approach. I didn't suddenly become more aggressive because I wanted 44 points back. I trusted my process. And across 3 very different races, the process won overall. Not every race, but overall. And perhaps that's the most important distinction in today's entire episode. To close today's podcast then, listeners and viewers, over the last couple of years, I stopped trying to chase every result. I stopped treating every finishing position as a judgment of my ability. I stopped assuming that improvement must come from something I need to buy. Instead, I gradually tried to build something that is consistent, repeatable, and increasingly reproducible. A process. That process has taken my formula iRating from just over 2,000 to more than 4,300. Now, I'm applying the same philosophy to sports cars, and the early evidence is beginning to look rather familiar. So perhaps we're asking the wrong question. Don't ask, how do I gain iRating? Ask, how do I become the kind of driver who gains iRating over hundreds of races? Because those are 2 completely different questions. One makes you chase the number, the other makes you improve the driver. And perhaps that's why, somewhere along the way, I stopped chasing results and started building my process. Because if the process is good, eventually the results have a habit of following. Hopefully today, some of you will take this advice, start writing it down before and after the race. I'm Guy Robertson, and this has been the Lone Road iRacing podcast. Until next week, race smart, review honestly, keep improving, and whatever your next race throws at you, bank the result that's still available. I'll see you on the Lone Road. See you next week.
Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone. Whatever it takes, we push hard, never alone. I'm in the cockpit, the engines roar, hear me now. We're racing circles, got a hustle made a vow. Chasing victory, it's all or nothing on the track. Speed is my motto, nothing's ever holding back. Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone.